Moses, the man who spoke. Face to face with God. If you love Jesus, subscribe. Have you ever wanted to see God? To hear His voice, not in your heart, not through Scripture, not through signs, but audibly, clearly, unmistakably. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to stand in His presence, to speak to Him face to face as a man speaks to his friend? Most of us live our entire lives hoping for just a glimpse, a whisper, a moment when heaven breaks through and we know, truly know, that God is real. But there was a man who didn't just glimpse God. He spoke with Him, face to face, like friends. His name was Moses, and his story is not just the story of the Exodus. It's not just about plagues and miracles and a sea that split in two. It's the story of what happens when an ordinary man encounters the living God. When the invisible becomes visible. When the distant becomes intimate. When the God of the universe chooses one person to know Him, not just to serve Him, but to know Him. Moses was a murderer, a fugitive, a shepherd in the wilderness with nothing to his name but guilt and questions. But God saw something in him. Not perfection, not confidence, not qualifications. God saw willingness. And through that willingness, Moses became the man who led a nation out of slavery, who carried the law down from a mountain wreathed in fire, who stood between God's wrath and a rebellious people and said, "If you destroy them, destroy me too." He was not a superhero. He was a man, flawed, afraid, angry at times, broken by what he saw and what he carried. But he knew God. And that changed everything. This is his story. Not told in Sunday school simplicity, but in its full, raw, breathtaking reality. This is the story of what it costs to walk with God, and what it means to speak with Him face to face. To know God is not to understand Him. It is to be known by Him. And those He chooses, He transforms. The boy in the basket. Egypt. 1400 BC, the mightiest empire on earth, towering pyramids, golden temples, pharaohs who declare themselves gods and slaves, millions of them. The Hebrews, descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They came to Egypt generations ago during a famine, welcomed by a Pharaoh who remembered Joseph. But now, a new Pharaoh sits on the throne. And he doesn't remember. He sees the Hebrews multiplying, growing stronger, more numerous. He's afraid. So he enslaves them. Bricks and mortar, whips and chains, brutal labor under the burning sun. But they keep multiplying. So Pharaoh gives an order. Simple, brutal, final. Every Hebrew baby boy must be thrown into the Nile. In a small mud brick house, a Hebrew woman gives birth. A son. She looks at him, his tiny face, his small hands, his innocent eyes, and she can't do it. She can't let them take him. So she hides him. For 3 months, she keeps him secret, keeps him quiet, keeps him alive. But a baby can only be hidden for so long. When she can hide him no longer, she does something desperate. She weaves a basket, seals it with tar and pitch so it floats. She places her son inside, wraps him carefully, kisses his forehead, and she sets the basket in the reeds along the Nile, the same river where Pharaoh's soldiers drown Hebrew babies. She walks away, weeping. His sister Miriam watches from a distance. And then, something impossible happens. Pharaoh's daughter comes to the river to bathe. She sees the basket. She opens it. She sees the baby, crying, helpless, Hebrew. She should kill him. That's the law. Her father's law. But she doesn't. She looks at him, and her heart breaks. This is one of the Hebrew children, she says, and she decides to keep him. Miriam steps forward. Should I find a Hebrew woman to nurse him for you? Pharaoh's daughter agrees, and so Moses, saved from death, is nursed by his own mother and raised in Pharaoh's palace. The slave boy becomes a prince. The condemned child becomes the heir to an empire. God's hand is already at work, even when no one sees it. God's plans begin long before we understand them, and He uses the enemy's own weapons to accomplish His purposes. The murderer in the wilderness. Moses grows up in the palace, the finest education, the best food, servants, power, wealth. He has everything. Everything except peace. Because he knows the truth. He's not Egyptian. He's Hebrew. His people are slaves, beaten, broken, dying under the weight of Pharaoh's cruelty. And he lives in comfort while they suffer. One day, Moses goes out to see them, his people, the slaves. He watches them hauling stones, making bricks, their backs bent under the sun. And then he sees it. An Egyptian taskmaster beating a Hebrew slave, whipping him. Again and again, something snaps inside Moses. Rage, injustice, fury. He looks around. No one is watching, and he kills the Egyptian. Buries the body in the sand. The next day, Moses goes out again. He sees two Hebrews fighting. He tries to intervene. One of them turns on him. Who made you a prince and judge over us? Are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian? Moses freezes. They know. Pharaoh will know. And Pharaoh will kill him. So Moses runs. He flees Egypt, the palace, the power, everything. He runs into the wilderness, into the desert, into nothing. He ends up in Midian, a barren, forgotten place far from Egypt's glory. He sits by a well, alone, exhausted, a fugitive. He helped some women water their flocks. Their father, Jethro, invites him in, gives him food, shelter, work. Moses becomes a shepherd. The prince becomes a nobody. The man who had everything now has nothing. He marries Jethro's daughter, Zipporah. They have a son. Moses names him Gershom. I have been a stranger in a foreign land. For 40 years, Moses tends sheep in the wilderness. 40 years of silence. 40 years of anonymity. 40 years of wondering if his life means anything at all. He killed a man. He ran. He failed. And now he's a shepherd in the middle of nowhere. God seems absent, distant, silent. But God is never silent. He's preparing Moses, stripping away the pride, the self-reliance, the princely arrogance, breaking him down so he can build him up. Because God doesn't use the confident, He uses the broken. Wilderness is not wasted time. It is where God removes everything we trust in, so we learn to trust only Him. The burning bush. One day, Moses is tending his father-in-law's flock near Mount Horeb. Just another day. Just another flock. Just another mountain. And then he sees it. a bush, on fire. That's not unusual in the desert. Dry brush catches flame all the time. But this bush doesn't burn up. The flames dance, the fire consumes, but the bush remains. Moses stops, stares. I will go over and see this strange sight, he says. He walks toward it. And then, a voice. Not in his head, not in his heart. Out loud, from the fire. Moses, Moses. Moses freezes. Here I am, he whispers. Do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Moses obeys. His hands tremble as he removes his sandals. His heart pounds. The voice continues. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Moses hides his face. He's terrified. God speaks. I have seen the suffering of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cry. I know their pain, and I have come down to deliver them. Moses listens, hope rising in his chest. God is going to save them. Finally. And then God says the words that change everything. So now, go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people out of Egypt. Moses' heart sinks. Me? Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? Moses stammers. Who am I that I should bring the Israelites out of Egypt? God's answer is simple. I will be with you. But Moses isn't convinced. What if they ask me your name? What do I tell them? God replies, I am who I am. Tell them I am has sent you. Moses keeps arguing. What if they don't believe me? What if they don't listen? God gives him signs. His staff turns into a snake. His hand becomes leprous and then healed. Still, Moses resists. Lord, I'm not a good speaker. I'm slow of speech. Send someone else. God's patience wears thin. Who gave man his mouth? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go. I will help you speak. Moses finally surrenders. Barely. Fine. But please, send someone with me. God agrees. Your brother Aaron will speak for you. And so Moses, the murderer, the fugitive, the shepherd, becomes the deliverer. Not because he's ready, but because God called him. God does not call the equipped. He equips the called, and his presence is the only qualification we need. The confrontation with Pharaoh. Moses returns to Egypt, 80 years old, staff in hand, Aaron by his side. They go to Pharaoh, the same throne Moses once knew, the same power structure. But now Moses stands on the other side. Let my people go, Moses says. Pharaoh laughs. Who is the Lord, that I should obey him? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go. And so begins the battle, not just between Moses and Pharaoh, between God and the gods of Egypt. 10 plagues, each one a judgment on an Egyptian deity. The Nile turns to blood, striking the god of the Nile. Frogs, gnats, flies, livestock disease, boils. Each time, Moses warns Pharaoh. Each time, Pharaoh refuses. His heart hardens again and again. Hail, locusts, darkness. The land is devastated. Egypt is brought to its knees. And still, Pharaoh says no. Finally, God tells Moses, "One more plague. After this, Pharaoh will let you go. The death of the firstborn. At midnight, the angel of death will pass through Egypt. Every firstborn son will die, from Pharaoh's palace to the poorest slave, unless the doorposts are marked with the blood of a lamb." The Israelites obey. They slaughter a lamb. They paint the blood on their doorframes. That night, death sweeps through Egypt. Every home without the blood loses its firstborn. The wailing is unbearable. The grief is total. Pharaoh's own son dies, and finally, Pharaoh breaks. "Go," he says. "Take your people and leave. Just go." The Israelites gather, 600,000 men, plus women and children, millions. They leave Egypt. After 400 years of slavery, they walk free. But Pharaoh changes his mind. He sends his army, chariots, soldiers, the best of Egypt. They chase the Israelites to the edge of the Red Sea. The people panic. "We should have stayed in Egypt. At least there we had food. Now we're going to die in the desert." Moses stands before them. Behind them, the Egyptian army approaches. Before them, the sea. And Moses says words that echo through history. "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." He raises his staff, and God moves. The sea splits. Water walls up on both sides. The ground in the middle becomes dry. The Israelites walk through, on dry ground, between two walls of water. The Egyptians follow. But when the last Israelite reaches the other side, Moses raises his staff again. The water crashes down. The entire Egyptian army is swallowed. Pharaoh's chariots, his soldiers, all of them, gone. And the Israelites stand on the other side, free. They sing, they dance, they worship, because God saved them, not through their strength, through His. God does not need our ability. He needs our availability. And when we step forward in faith, He makes a way where there is no way. Face to face with God. Moses leads the people through the wilderness. It's not easy. They complain constantly. No water, no food. We should have stayed in Egypt. God provides. Water from a rock, manna from heaven, quail in the camp. But they keep complaining. 3 months after leaving Egypt, they arrive at Mount Sinai. God calls Moses up the mountain. Moses climbs, alone. At the top, God speaks. Not through a prophet, not through signs. Directly, He gives Moses the law, the 10 Commandments, instructions for living as God's people. Moses is on the mountain for 40 days. The people below grow restless. They go to Aaron. "Make us a god." Moses is gone. We need something to worship. Aaron, weak, afraid, agrees. They melt down their gold jewelry. They cast a golden calf. And they worship it. They dance. They sacrifice. They say, "This is the God who brought us out of Egypt." On the mountain, God tells Moses, "Go down. Your people have corrupted themselves." God's anger burns. "I will destroy them and start over with you." But Moses pleads, "Lord, Why destroy the people you saved? What will the Egyptians say? They'll say, you brought them out just to kill them in the desert. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember your promises. And God relents. Moses descends the mountain. He carries 2 stone tablets, the 10 Commandments, written by the finger of God. When he sees the people worshiping the calf, his anger explodes. He throws down the tablets. They shatter. He burns the calf, grinds it to powder, makes the people drink it. 3,000 die that day, and Moses goes back up the mountain. He pleads with God. These people have sinned, but please forgive them, or blot me out of your book. God responds, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy. Moses asks for something bold. Show me your glory. God says, no one can see my face and live. But I will hide you in the cleft of the rock. I will cover you with my hand, and after I pass by, you will see my back. And so it happens. God passes by. Moses hears his voice proclaiming, the Lord, compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness. Moses falls on his face. He worships. When he comes down the mountain the second time, his face is glowing, radiant with the glory of God. The people can't even look at him. He has to wear a veil, because he has been in the presence of God. Face to face. The closer we get to God, the more we reflect his glory. And the more we reflect his glory, the more the world sees him in us. The wilderness and the cost of leadership. For 40 years, Moses leads the people through the wilderness. 40 years of wandering, of complaining, of rebellion. They test God. They test Moses again and again. At one point, they rebel so completely that God threatens to destroy them all. Moses stands between God and the people. If you destroy them, Moses says, destroy me too. God spares them because of Moses, but the cost is immense. Moses' own siblings, Miriam and Aaron, turn against him. The people complain about food, about water, about everything. They long for Egypt, for slavery, for anything but this. Moses bears it all, the weight, the responsibility, the loneliness. One day, the people are thirsty. They demand water. God tells Moses, speak to the rock, and it will give water. But Moses is exhausted, frustrated, angry. He strikes the rock, twice, hard. Water pours out, but God is displeased. Because you did not trust me enough to honor me as holy, you will not bring this community into the land I give them. Moses' heart breaks. 40 years of leading, 40 years of sacrifice, 40 years of standing between God and a rebellious people. And he won't enter the promised land. But Moses doesn't give up. He keeps leading, keeps teaching, keeps interceding. Because leadership is not about the reward. It's about obedience. Leadership is costly. It demands everything. And sometimes, the cost is never entering the place you've been leading others toward. The death of Moses. The people finally reach the edge of the promised land. 40 years of wandering are over. Moses stands on Mount Nebo. He looks across the Jordan River. He sees it. The land God promised Abraham. The land flowing with milk and honey. He can see it, but he can't enter it. God says, This is the land I promised. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you will not cross over into it. Moses doesn't argue. He's 120 years old. His eyes are clear. His strength is undiminished, but his work is done. He gathers the people. He speaks to them one last time. He reminds them of everything God has done. He warns them to obey, to love God, to keep His commands. He blesses them, tribe by tribe. And then, alone, he climbs the mountain. At the top, God meets him. For the last time, Moses dies there, on the mountain, in the presence of God. And God Himself buries him, no one knows where. The people mourn for 30 days. But Moses' legacy lives forever. He was the man who spoke with God face to face, who led a nation out of slavery, who carried the law down from the mountain, who stood between God's wrath and a rebellious people and said, "Take me instead." He was not perfect. He was flawed. He made mistakes, but he knew God. And that changed everything. The greatest honor is not to achieve great things. It is to walk with God. And Moses walked with Him, face to face. The legacy and the invitation. Moses never entered the Promised Land, but his influence shaped a nation. The law he carried down from Sinai became the foundation of Israel. The faith he demonstrated became the standard for what it means to walk with God. Thousands of years later, Jesus stood on a mountain, and Moses appeared beside him. At the Transfiguration, Moses and Elijah talked with Jesus about his coming death in Jerusalem. The man who spoke with God face to face now stood beside God in flesh. The deliverer met the deliverer. The one who carried the law met the one who fulfilled it. Moses' story is not just history. It's an invitation to know God. Not just to know about Him, but to know Him. To hear His voice. Not just in Scripture, but in your heart. To walk with Him. Not perfectly, but faithfully. Moses didn't have all the answers. He didn't always get it right, but he kept showing up. He kept listening. He kept obeying, and God used him to change the world. The same God who spoke to Moses still speaks today, not from a burning bush necessarily, but from His Word, through His Spirit. In the quiet moments when we stop and listen, the same God who split the sea still makes ways where there are no ways. The same God who provided manna in the wilderness still provides what we need. The same God who met Moses face to face still invites us into intimacy. Not because we're perfect, but because He is faithful. Moses teaches us that God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. He doesn't choose the confident. He strengthens the willing. Your past doesn't disqualify you. Your failures don't exclude you. God used a murderer to deliver a nation. He can use you. The question is not whether you're good enough. The question is, will you say yes? Will you take off your sandals and stand on holy ground? Will you listen when God calls your name? Will you go when He says go, even when you're afraid? Moses did. And the world was never the same. The same God who spoke to Moses face to face still speaks today. The same God who delivered Israel still delivers those who trust Him. Will you answer when He calls?